It's time to step behind the scenes and take a closer look at the Owen Sound Attack. This is Bear Tracker Weekly. Here's your host, JC Coots.
Hello and welcome to the season finale of the Bear Tracker Weekly podcast. My name is JC. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast this week, and thank you so much for tuning in all season long. The playoffs have been over for just over a week now. It's Thursday, April the 9th, as I record this podcast. Yesterday, on Wednesday, April 8th, I got to talk to Dale DeGray. That conversation in its entirety is coming up. We also have the Media Room Roundtable. Got to talk to them this evening, and we'll have that conversation for you as well. A year-end wrap-up on the Owen Sound Attack with all the members of the Roundtable. We're looking forward to that. That's coming up. But I guess first, my thoughts on the end of the year for the Owen Sound Attack. It ended, as you all know at this point, with one of the most lopsided losses in OHL and CHL playoff history. It was an ugly one. I think illness played a part in this loss. Maybe some injuries from the season played a part of it, and maybe some locker room drama played a part of it as well. Some of that, the general manager of the team will shed a light on during my conversation with him, which is coming up. But for the rest of it, I don't know what to say. Honestly, as somebody that, now I haven't followed this team for the longest, as some of our Owen Sound reporters have. This was my now fourth season following the team, mostly following it via Rogers TV. And in 4 years, I've still yet to see a playoff win. And I am so stuck on the fact that when I recorded this year-end episode last year, which was the first year that I did this podcast, there was so much hope in the air. There was so much looking forward to the future. I mean, last year, we ran into the London Knights, essentially an AHL team that everyone knew was probably going to win the Memorial Cup. Not just the OHL. They were going all the way, and they did. In fact, the team that probably gave them the most competition in last year's playoffs was the Owen Sound Attack. So last year, everything is excusable. The team played hard. They earned that no-quit Bears kind of mantra, that attitude that they had last year. There was so much to look forward to this year, and it started out great. And then it wasn't great all of a sudden, and I don't know how to explain it. Injuries are a big part of it. And the only way I can really explain it to myself is the injuries led to losses, which then put a magnifying glass on maybe some other little problems that were bubbling under the surface, and those exploded, and then we got to where we got to. And unfortunately, it was just all kind of downhill from the time the injury started in about mid to late October into November, and then just everything went sideways. I guess that's really the only way to explain it. Can you put fault on any one individual? I don't think so. I think if you were to look at this like a courtroom drama, there would be multiple suspects in this case for why things didn't work out. Yes, you can put a little bit of blame on the general manager, who you can definitely hang the Michael Deck trade on Dale DeGray. I think he will accept that. I didn't specifically ask him about it, but I already know that he probably would like that one back. Then you have the coaching. Was the coaching that bad? Or were they the same group last year that let the kids grow and make mistakes and develop? Wasn't that the same as it was last year? Did that all of a sudden become bad? I don't know. Was it the players or an individual group of players, perhaps, that no longer respected the coach or maybe just didn't care? Was that the situation? Was that the case? Or was it a combination of everything? Injuries, bad moves, bad decisions, bad leadership, and maybe a few bad apples. Maybe it was everything. It's hard to say. It's just, as Dale has said it when I asked him to describe the season, frustrating is the word to describe the season. It's frustrating for, I'm sure, the players. I definitely got that sense from them, talking to them and watching them. It's definitely frustrating for the coaches who expected that they were going to build on a lot of success from last year. It's definitely frustrating for the general manager. It's frustrating for the owners. And it's frustrating for you, the fans, who show up, support this team, put your money down, and every year it's a little bit more money because everything is. And yeah, frustrating is I think the only way to describe it. It's unfortunately, I don't know, a lost season. And can it come back? Can it be fixed? Can everybody walk forward from this? Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's questions that will be answered in the months to come before the ice is put back into the Bay Shore and the new season begins. So we'll have to wait and see for all that. But in the meantime, the season is over, and I think, and I'm sure you do too, that there's probably more questions than answers at this very moment right now. We're still waiting to answer some of those questions. Maybe the general manager can answer some of those questions for you. Maybe the Media Room Roundtable, the media boys, will be able to shed some light and answer some questions for you. But at this exact moment, I don't know. I don't know how you come away from this season, how you keep everybody together and hope that next year will just be better. I guess by saying that, what I'm saying is that I think there will be some changes. I don't exactly know where they're going to be. I have no crystal ball into this. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, with all of that said, welcome to the season finale. Thank you for tuning in. There will be, of course, another episode coming this summer with the OHL draft. That is the plan as of now. We'll talk more about that later on. But let's get into it. You've been waiting to hear from Dale DeGray, the general manager of the Owen Sound Attack. There's been a lot said about his comments in the Owen Sound Sun-Times in the interview that he did with Greg Cowan following the end of the season. There's been some more comments made in the great interview that Matt Hermes did with him on CFOS, which you can find if you go to bayshorebroadcasting.ca. You can find that interview. But I had a chance to talk to Dale on Wednesday, April the 8th this week. And I asked, I guess, all the key questions I wanted to ask. And we had a little bit of time together. So here's the general manager, Dale DeGray, and his thoughts on the season for the Owen Sound Attack.
All right, we are joined by General Manager Dale DeGray from the Owen Sound Attack for our what's becoming a traditional end-of-season interview. And the end of this season, Dale, obviously a lot different than a year ago when we talked. Of course, a year ago, the result was the same. The Attack had just been swept out of the first round of the OHL playoffs. But back then, it seemed like the future and everything was really bright, and you'd be moving into year two with a great team, a great foundation, a great coaching staff. And now here we are a year later, and the shine has worn off, and everything in the future kind of looks in question right now. So Dale, first, I guess, kind of what are your thoughts on what we saw this season? Where do you think it started to kind of go wrong? And ultimately, even though the Attack had more wins and more points than last year and finished higher in the standings, ultimately, what's your assessment of how it took to get here after this year?
Well, Jason, thanks for having me, but I can also, even say I can sense frustration even in your questions. So, I mean, no more than probably anybody that goes to the game, and I'd like to think that, we kind of finished where I thought we would at the start of the year. I'm pretty sure I said we'd probably be in that 5-6 spot. But it's not so much where we finished, but how we finished to get there. And I would love to, I'd love to say to everybody, let's just reverse the schedule, like reverse, have the start of the year be the end of the year. And if that was the case, I think everybody would be sitting there going, wow, what a finish, what a season. They really came on and blah, blah, blah. But that's not, you don't have that good fortune to be able to do that and still end up with the same amount of points. But so the season was incredibly frustrating, as much as it was for fans and the way that we had played at times. I think it was even more so for me and the staff to watch and see how that all played out, for sure. I thought the last month, the last 3 weeks, I thought we were going in the right direction. We were picking up points on teams, throughout the end of the year. And I thought, even when we beat Flint, second, third last game of the season, I thought maybe we're going in the right direction here. And that's exciting. But immediately, once the season started, outside of that first 6-7 minutes in Flint, it really fell apart rather quickly. And a 5-minute penalty, and then a high sticking penalty, and then 2 goals, and then you're down 4-0 after the first period. It's tough, and it didn't get any better for us. So I think we all have to reflect a little bit on what we did or didn't do, or what we could change, and that's not something that happens overnight. I think we, like I said, to reflect and see what we can do and try to come up with a plan where quite honestly, we work on it through the summertime, whether it's through personnel or whatever it might be, a plan, and set the goals to September to be like, we've got a lot of kids returning for next year. And yeah, some of that is my job to say, hey, what were some of the problems, and to try to fix from within if that's the case, and make some changes and move forward. I mean, we even have some kids that are already signed to come in that nobody's seen. So those are all positive steps for the future to move forward.
I guess with some of the big questions that have been brought up in the last couple of weeks, I guess we'll start with the question around you. I think the first question is, how are you, by the way? How are you doing through all this? Mark McKelvey wanted me to ask you if you're getting some sleep and feeling okay. How are you? How's Dale DeGray the person right now?
Look, I'm fine. I'm frustrated, more than probably most, because it didn't turn out, didn't play out the way, every year I set out, where I think we'll be and how I think we'll get there. That certainly didn't happen. And I mean, I've say it all the time, JC, and everybody hears me say it. I stand at the same place every single game, and I'm there for, people want to pat me on the back or kick me in the ass. I'm in the same place. This year it was a little bit more on the negative side, which is hard to take at times, outside of the first couple of months, because everybody was high-fiving me and saying, oh, this and that and the other thing. But that's what we sign up for. And I've been involved in this for a long, long time. And even when you're a player, you're scrutinized over a giveaway or if you score or whatever it is, you're in the public eye. And I've been in the public eye really probably since I was 15 playing junior. So it is what it is. And I'm not trying to be flippant when I say that, because you gotta learn from it and you have to move on. But I gotta take the negativity, listen to it, and reflect on it, and try to do everything I can so that come September, it's a different version, a better version, moving forward.
So you're already talking about September and looking ahead and moving forward. So that would suggest to me that you are planning on sticking around. Has there been any conversations with ownership? Have they kind of confirmed to you, yeah, you're our guy for moving forward, or is that still kind of up in the air?
And JC, unless you've heard something that I haven't, I have 2 years left on my agreement. You know what? I've just sent out the letters I send out every year to the 15-year-olds that we would like to see in Owen Sound. We're going to start doing phone calls to them. So unless you've heard something that I don't know anything about, then yeah, my plan is to continue on I guess maybe if that's the case, then maybe whether fans like it or not, they should expect to see me on that rail.
I'm typically the last one to find out about anything, so you would definitely have heard from Greg Cowan and Matt Hermes before me. You'll probably hear from Dave, the guy that runs the media room door, before you'll hear from me
Yeah.
on anything. Okay, Dale. Well, good to hear that the plans are there for you anyway to be sticking around and things are moving forward. The other big question mark that people have been asking about is the coaching staff, and in particular the head coach, and whether or not they'll be sticking around. I don't know if you are somebody that puts these kind of things on a timeline and like I won't make a decision until this point, or I have to make a decision before the draft so the new guy has time to think about what he's working with. Is there any decisions that have been made there? Is everybody coming back, or is that still again something more conversations, more thought needs to happen?
No, 100%. More thoughts, more conversation, and that's sort of where I'm at right now. Yeah. You know what? I mean, people are they're so easy to cast judgment, and I mean, I was with them throughout the 4 games. I was on the bus. I saw the preparation. I I know exactly what they were prepping to try to do. I'm not sure that it got carried through. That's the sort of part that I'm trying to find out right now. Why didn't it get carried through? And what some of those answers might be. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see in the near future. But as of right now, they all have a year left on their deal, their agreements. Could something come up? Maybe one of them goes somewhere. Maybe one of them goes on their own. I have no idea. But right now, the plan is that we're back. But we definitely have to make some changes and to see how that plays out.
The other part of it, the big part of it, obviously, is the players and the personnel. And I know that in some of the post-game or post-season interviews that have already come out with yourself and with Scott, there's been kind of a notion in there that some of the players may have quit. Certainly that's been kind of some of the feedback that we as media have heard from some of the individual players as well. And if that's the case, if it was a case of you had some guys that just gave up, or maybe to an extent, an even greater extent, that the coach kind of lost control over the room. If those things are true, whether a little true or a lot true, how do you repair as a general manager something like that? What can you do to let the players know, number one, that all that stuff off ice stuff that happened last year isn't going to happen moving forward, and especially if you're keeping the same team together, the same crew, everybody's still going to be together for the most part. How do you assure them that you've got this, you've seen this before, you know how to fix it? How does that all work moving forward?
Well, it's like I said, part of it is asking the questions and trying to get your finger and pinpoint exactly what did happen. You're right. And as I said, there's still questions to be answered, and we're not that far removed from our last game, and I don't think speaking immediately to kids, when the wound is so fresh, is not really the right time. But those questions will be asked. But the big thing is we've heard is about the accountability. Whether it's the coaches towards the players, whether it's the players' accountability to themselves, which to me is really kind of what some of the players had made mention about at the end of the season in their exit meetings. That's a little bit concerning to me. So we'll see as we move along here to get some answers and try to get it figured out and put the puzzle back together. And you know what, if it means that some guys aren't coming back, then I think everybody knows that I'm not afraid to make changes. So it'll be a matter of figuring out who and why and is it fixable? And if it's not, then you know what, we have to move on and just move forward.
Looking ahead to the future, I think you've already said that you expect a couple of players that are in the organization, a couple of picks will likely be joining the team next year. I think that Jet Kawaja's name was brought up
Yeah,
previously. Bernat, who's playing right now, I think it's over in Finland, I want to
yeah,
say.
yeah,
He's possibly coming over next year. So
yeah,
you're already looking at some pretty big pieces coming in. That, in addition to the upcoming draft, you've got a lot of picks in the draft coming up.
yeah.
I know that Jet's younger brother, Cash, was recently at the OHL Cup as well. And he's kind of right in that same range that you'll be making your
High
first
skill
pick.
player. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is I guess first of all, what's kind of are you looking at the draft? What's the biggest needs for the Owen Sound Attack to fill, and is Cash Kawaja right up on that list as well?
He, like I said, he definitely is. Without giving it too much away, I mean, he's a highly regarded player. He could be gone before we even pick, quite frankly. Um, so yeah, is forward a spot that we would be looking at? I think we're going to look at probably the most talented player this year. Um, I think my thought would be, we've got a ton of forwards coming back. We've got lots of skill. Um, I don't necessarily know that a 16-year-old defenseman is going to be the fix for us moving forward to next year. Having a high school defenseman is would be awesome, but I think in order to get us to where we want to be to start, I may have to make a couple of trades, and that's we talked about the cupboard full of picks. That's sort of where that would come from and go to. Not necessarily picks from this year, but moving forward, we have a couple of years where we have 4 second-round picks. So it's easy to see how you can transfer those into able bodies that can come in and help right from the get-go. And that would be what I would say regarding the back end. Do you still want to, have youngsters on the back end to move forward? For sure. But once again, I've said it, the landscape of this league now has changed a little bit. And it seems to be ever changing, quite honestly, JC. So we'll have to see how that all plays out as well.
Yeah, of course. One of those big parts that is changing the landscape is the NCAA ruling, and Owen Sound, I believe, has the most players committed of any team, not just in the OHL, but I think they're
Not sure that's good or bad.
Not sure that's good or bad. Yeah. Well, that is my next question. Owen Sound Attack fans seem to be hyper paranoid that half the team is walking away to the NCAA next year. But Pierce Bowie's been on this podcast within the last few weeks and said, nope, he's not going next year. Are you worried about any of that? I know you're shaking your head right now in the video version of the podcast, but are you worried about any half the team walking next year to the NCAA?
No, I don't. I don't see that. I mean, listen, if you watch the NCAA, it's a real good league, and it's a bunch of young men. Like, we consider our kids young men. Well, these are older young men, and it's tough. Like, it's a tough jump. I think some of the kids that tried to jump this year that were very good OHL players at 19, they tried to jump. It's difficult to play there as a 20-year-old. I think you're going to play a lot. So I'm not saying that some kids won't, depending on the program. I know Braden Rogers he's going to move on. I'm not so sure he might not be the only one, Tristan DeLille he's talked about it. It's been hemmed and hawed about one way or the other. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'll make sure that I try to stay as honest as they want to be. I'll try to stay in communication with them so that I know. But I think pretty much mostly for us, yeah, we have the most kids signed to NCAA agreements, but I think most of them, other than the overages, will be back.
I guess the one question I should have asked when we were talking about the draft and talking about the needs of the Owen Sound Attack is obviously we know there's a lot of forwards and a lot of D that will be back, but I guess goaltending is another big question. We got to see a little preview of the possible Priest future when Dylan Durno got called into action in game one of that playoff series again, or in the first home game game 3 of that Flint series. But after Dylan, I'm not sure exactly what's in the system, what's coming up, what might be there. If the 2 guys we have this year will both be back, if one will be back, what does the future of goaltending look like in Owen Sound right now, Dale?
Well, listen, it's always been very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's always been very good. And if somebody was to tell me, 5 games left of the season, that we would have seen what we saw in the playoffs, I probably would have laughed in your face, quite frankly. So, and there's a situation where I think both goalies would probably be able to come on here and honestly say, look at, they could have or should have been better. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not pointing the finger at saying, hey, it was on them. It's not. I mean, it's a team game, right? And so you know what? Will goaltending be something that we look at? Absolutely. Like the other positions. Do you know what I mean? We came up short, JC. So we've got to look at everything. And I have to flip over as many rocks as I can. I've got to kick as many bushes as I can to make us better come September. And if we feel that the 2 goalies we've got, which I believe are both very capable OHL goaltenders, and hopefully they don't ever have to go through a 3 goalie rotation again, because I've openly said that was a bit of a disaster and something that I wish I didn't have to do and wasn't put in a situation to even consider. So maybe those 2 starting out as a 1-2 from the get-go, knowing that you win a game, you play a game, and keep going from there, that they might feel a little bit more comfortable in the jersey when it's their time to play. Because I think we all know that your forwards, you make a mistake, the D can cover you up. The D make a mistake, the goalie can cover you up. But if the goalie makes a mistake, that donkey behind him's turning the red light on, and everybody knows who made that mistake. So, I'm just look. I really like both kids. I think, like I said, I think they're both very capable goaltenders in our league, and I think it would really take something to change that. I think they'll come back with better attitude, different feeling towards what they're pushing forward to be and have as a group. But it's not just goaltending. It comes from the 5 guys in front of him. And we'll have to figure that out.
Dale, I'll just ask you a question about the rest of the league from a general manager's perspective. Now that we're through the first round of the OHL series or OHL playoffs, and we have a better idea of, how these playoffs are shaping up. Do you have a prediction for who you think is going to take the OHL crown this year? Who will be the champions at the end of these playoffs?
Boy, I think the 4 teams that are there, or the 8 teams that are there, I think are probably the best 8 teams in the league, from my thoughts. Boy, I like Barrie. I like Barrie on the other side. Ooh.
I think the fact that you didn't immediately say Brantford says something, that this is going to be a lot more competitive this year. It's not like last year when the consensus was London immediately as the answer. This year seems like it's going to be much more competitive.
I think it will definitely be more competitive. That's what I said. Like, I think there's 8 really good teams, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it does play out. I think it's gonna be, I think in the first round, there was only a couple teams that won 1 game in their series, correct? I think this next series there'll be lots of game 6 and 7s.
Yeah, I have a feeling you might be right about that, based on the quality of the teams that are still remaining here in the OHL playoffs. Dale, I guess before I let you go, if you had to sum up this season, maybe in a word, in 5 words or less, what would your summation of the 2025-26 attack season be?
It's quite easy, and the word would be frustrating. from start to finish with the start we had, the dip in the middle, and then to finish the way we finished. Between frustrating and disappointing would be easy for me to come up with.
All right. Well, Dale, hopefully much brighter things in the future. Obviously, it will be another big summer of change for the Owen Sound Attack. We don't know what that change will include, but I will plan to talk to you for sure again around the draft and get your thoughts on all the newest members of the attack once the draft happens in Kingston this year. But between now and then, I wish you all the best. Enjoy the slowly warming temperatures and enjoy the best that spring has to offer us.
Well, hopefully it's a nice warm spring for us all, for sure.
All right, well, we had to get the Media Room Roundtable together one more time before we all part ways for the summer. And it was great. Even though we weren't able to get together in person, we were able to get together on Zoom. All the boys, Mark McKelvey, Matt Hermes, Greg Cowan, Spencer Byers, and yes, Adrian Musso. Here is the Media Room Roundtable and their thoughts on the Attack's season. All right, Media Room Roundtable, we're going to get right into it because we are all gathered here over Zoom, and I am not willing to pay for Zoom, which means we only get like 40 minutes to talk over the free version, so we're going to cram all this in as quickly as we can. Mark McKelvey, Adrian Musso, Greg Cowan, Matt Hermes are all here. Spencer Byers, fashionably late as usual. Hopefully we will hear from him, but gentlemen, let's get into it. So the season ended 8 days ago. We've all had a chance to kind of dissect all the information, read through and hear the interviews that have been done since the season ended. Great work by Greg and Matt, by the way, with their interviews already for both Scott and for Dale DeGray. So I guess I'll just start by saying I don't know what happened this year other than I think the biggest thing was the injuries at the start of the season exacerbated everything. Any issues, any problems. Once the losing started, those got worse, and then the internal relationships got worse. And I think we can all, if we're looking at a statement of facts here, all agree that maybe mistakes were made by the general manager, some mistakes were made by the coaching staff, and maybe, yes, some of the players as well got a little too cliquey through the season. Maybe that can all be agreed upon. But what is each of your assessments of what went down, and where can we possibly go from here? Mark McKelvey, you're in your car. You're on the move.
Yep.
Although you are legally parked in a parking spot. So we appreciate you doing this from the car tonight.
Can't park there. Can't park there.
What did you think of the season, Mark?
It's funny that you ask us to go back to the start of the year because that feels like ages ago, considering how everything went. But I always said, and maybe it's easy to say in hindsight, but I said it probably early on in the season that they weren't as good as the record indicated after that hot start. To me, it was a team that was overachieving quite a bit. And then the holes were being shown throughout the course of kind of the last half of October into early November. I think we all know that game in Flint on a Sunday afternoon. I'm sure Matt remembers it well. The Attack got just kind of bullied around, and then that's what led ultimately to the much talked about Michael Deck, Wesley Royston trade. If you're asking me kind of look back to say, where did everything go wrong? If that trade's still not made, I still think the Attack are going to have their struggles eventually. I just think they were overachieving. And this team ultimately was probably a sixth place hockey club in the Western Conference. Would we have all felt a lot better if they finished a clear sixth and, at the end of the day, just, slides here and there and made things happen? Then sure. It's just the way it all went down, right? And I know Dale in his interview with Matt talked about the fact that, they ended up sixth, but, really, were they a sixth place hockey club? I think without the trade early in the season, with the team not facing all the injuries, they probably still end up there right in the middle of the Western Conference. So I can't pinpoint exactly one thing that went wrong other than maybe that's exactly what they was that middle of the road hockey team that was just overachieving at the start of the year and didn't get a lot of bounces. We know that. Felt like things were always going wrong against them, but maybe that just was the case.
I have a similar opinion to Mark. I think that the 9-2 start for the Owen Sound Attack sort of created an unrealistic set of expectations from all of us, maybe, and the fan base and anyone, and maybe even the players and the coaching staff, just thinking that this was the time to go for it. Remember, at the start of the year, you had Carter George, you had some pieces there that you might think, well, maybe this is the year that we try to go and push for it. And Dale DeGray, in the conversation I had with him postseason, he made this comment during the season as well at the trade deadline, had indicated that his intention was to do something different, but the desires of Carter George changed the path of the Owen Sound Attack, at least in terms of the approach of the general manager in roster construction for post-Gen 9. So, I really think that start, certainly created expectations that maybe weren't what this team really was. Think of zoom back and zoom out and kind of think of where the team is at in their cycle, right? What did we start last season, 2024-25? The Owen Sound Attack were in a clear rebuild, right? It was out with the old, in with the new. They had a lot of rookies on their team last season and a clear goal stated in making the playoffs. This year, I think that was a bit cloudy in terms of what this team was, what this team should be. And I think the start created maybe some unrealistic expectations. And then you look, what did the Owen Sound Attack become post-trade deadline? Were they a better team or a worse team? Well, I would say that the departure of Carter George and trading away who was your captain at the time, David Bedkowski, it's hard to make an argument that you're a better roster on paper. So really what I'm getting at is that this wasn't the year for them. And I think the general manager's moves showed that. And again, some of the commentary from Dale DeGray, he had said that maybe he had other plans, but that's not the way they ended up going. So also just track kind of the tough times the Attack went through. They had 3 losing streaks of 7+ games. And the first one, the first loss was Carter George's last start with the Owen Sound Attack. So I also think there's something to be said about his departure and what Carter meant to the Owen Sound Attack, not just as a player on the ice and his ability as one of the top goaltenders in the OHL and the CHL, but also as who he was as a locker room leader. And that might sound a bit different for a goaltender. It's not often that you see a goaltender that's sort of really ingrained with the team and one who sets the culture, but I believe that was the case for Carter George, and a lot went on during this season. But I think that his departure was certainly one of the big factors why the players as a group struggled to get back on track after the decision was made for him to depart. So again, long season. None of that really explains how you get to the playoffs and that sort of series unfolds. But I do believe, like kind of what Mark said, the Attack maybe weren't ever as good as their start indicated. I don't think they were as bad as the season ended or how things went in December, January, and February either. There's still a lot of good pieces in place. There's players, and it will be the job of the general manager to figure everything out and diagnose exactly what went wrong and what can be changed to ensure next season the team's on a better path.
It's strange for me to kind of have these conversations because the memories, like Matt mentioned, of that.
Sorry, your background threw me there, Greg. You changed it.
I'm on that mission I'm on that mission that slingshotted around the moon. I'm the 5th. They never show me in any of the news coverage. I'm always the one holding the camera. But yeah, it's weird talking like this, like going over the whole season and talking about injuries and the Carter George trade. Like I just can't get over the last playoff series.
Right.
Like you guys are right. To me, there's a world where this team finishes 6th, loses in the first round, and we're sitting here talking about all the hope for next season. You know, Bowie comes back, Zarowski comes back, DeLille comes back. What a first line already. Nancy, Crawford. And they had a pretty good first round series, but they just were edged out by Flint. But that's not what happened at all. They got decimated. It was the biggest blowout. It was just bizarre. Like we've never seen anything like it. So to talk about, and I've talked to people about this, about, oh, the penalty kill was awful in the playoffs, or oh, the injuries, or the sickness, or it's like seeing a house that's on fire and saying, oh no, the windows are broken. Like it's just kind of like, what are we talking about? That was one of the worst playoff performances we've ever seen. And to me, it's symptomatic of something that is happening with this group of players or the coaching staff or whatever it is. Like, that wasn't just a loss, it was a statement. And that's what needs to be unpacked in the offseason. What happened here? Why did it happen? How do we make sure it never happens again? Because that was bigger than sports to me. That was bigger than X's and O's. That was emotions. That was relationships. That was people collapsing. And it was crazy to watch.
Adrian, any thoughts from you on where it all went wrong this season, or on how you think things will move forward?
Well, I think something has to change, and it could be drastic. I don't know if it's just going to be the removal of a secondary coach or a video coach. I'm just throwing things out. I think that if something needs to change, it has to be could be monumental. And I'm not calling for the firing of anybody by no means, but we've seen it for 4 years in a row. They haven't won a playoff game. So I think it's even deeper than this playoff series. I think it's deeper than this season. There needs to be a culture change in Owen Sound, and I don't know how that's going to be. If it's you draft a stud and he comes in and he changes the dynamic of a franchise like Nick Suzuki once did, but something needs to change, and I'm not getting paid to do that, to tell you what it's going to be. But I think you're dealing with teenage kids, and you have to deal with their emotions as well. And you have to be hard on them, but you have to be fair with them as well. So I think sometimes when you're giving people unfair, not treatment, but you're giving them opportunities when they don't deserve it, others around the table are starting to see, why is he getting that ice time and why am I not? I have 15 goals and he has 10, or he has 5 and he's on the power play. Why am I not? So I think there's a lot of questioning that is going on in kids' minds. And if you're like, kids are softer than they once were, and you can't be as forward and direct with them anymore. So I think I'm not in the dressing room. I don't know how the coaches how the general manager handles them. I don't know that, but I know that when you see the product on the ice, it was far greater than the players playing.
Spencer Byers has since joined us. Oh, sorry. Somebody's talking. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Adrian said something about I'm not getting paid for this. He's getting paid, JT? What's going on here? We got to get to the bottom of that first.
Also, his students are going to watch. His students are going to watch this and be like, "Who are you calling soft, old man?"
Oh, they know who they are. No,
I'm getting bullied on my TikTok daily. You didn't have to deal with any of this.
Spencer Byers has since joined us. Spencer, thank you for being here. What's your synopsis of the season? Where do you think it all went wrong, and how do you think they can possibly move forward from where we are now?
Synopsis is short and sweet. Not good. I mean, all of us saw the way it ended. Most goals conceded in a 4-game sweep, largest differential, and I believe the first round ever. Like, not a lot of positives. If there are any positives from that first round series, I think it's pretty easy to just wash it, as hard as it will be for Attack fans and I'd say the whole organization. And then ways to fix it. I mean, I think Adrian kind of touched on it. I think obviously everyone did as well with, I think trying to go a little bit, I'll say a little bit closer to it. I think that certain players, and again, that's not to name anybody out, not my job, maybe I'm misreading it, but sometimes when one guy look down the bench and you don't think he's given a max effort, even if he is, if you think one guy's not giving max effort, it's hard to convince yourself to give that max effort, and then it becomes a systematic thing. So that's where I think that, as an organization, regardless of if that's coaching changes, managerial changes, obviously player changes with guys going to the NCAA. I've already heard, obviously, with us losing 3 OAs, I've heard of other players that seemingly are not coming back on Attack Wrap. Over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see those with Coach Ray, who just aired, and then the assistants, Coach O'Grady, and then Coach Shaw next week on Attack Wrap. But it's going to be a lot of change around the OHL, and that's going to be where this summer is. maybe the dawn of that era where we're going to see a lot of change, and that's maybe a good thing for this attack team. Be able to kind of weed out some of the guys that maybe were not up to that quote unquote no quit Bears attitude they had last season, and then bring that into next season, because obviously we've all mentioned it, a lot throughout this season with all the losing streaks, with all the blowout losses in the end. It's pretty easy to look at it and go, man, like what a horrible way to end the season, especially when, as I know Mark McKelvey mentioned throughout the year, if we had flipped this season where we start poorly, they end pretty well like they did last year, and the playoffs is somewhat close and they lose to a good Flint team who's now going to go play Windsor, you're thinking, oh, you got Pierce Bowie coming back at, as a maybe first round, second round pick. Cole Zarowski was going to be a draft pick. Harry Nancy comes back after playing some games for the Marlies, you'd think. There's a lot of positives, a lot of, happiness going into the season, where now you're going into it like, man, you just got blown up for the fourth straight time in the first round. You still won a playoff game in over 1,400 days, almost 1,500 days. There's just a lot of negativity, and that's where, is there going to be a managerial change because of that negativity, or is the ownership going to say, we believe in Dale DeGray as we have over the last 15 years?
I knew you were smart, Spencer. That was exactly the point I made before you got on the call. I knew you were the smartest guy on the panel. I knew it.
I mean, Greg, you and I, great minds think alike. Everyone's reading those Owen Sound Sometimes articles, so it's easy to see your articles are just infusing within the community.
Text me after this. We'll talk about starting our own podcast.
People read his articles?
People comment on the articles, not just read them, Adrian. They comment on them. I was reading some of the comments too, just scamming through them to see what was happening.
Those are all me on burner accounts.
Oh, you're Kevin Durant now. Oh, okay.
Gotta drive engagement somehow.
I'm going to avoid the direct question to the panel of anybody losing their job, because I think that we can all agree that we're pretty close to all of these guys and people that work with the team, and we have good relationships with them, and they're all good people, and you can't really imagine or discuss people getting fired. I mean, if you guys in any of your answers from here on out want to discuss any thoughts of people getting replaced, I'll leave that up to you, but we're just going to avoid that. I had a lot of questions get submitted today on social media, which, thanks, by the way, to everybody. It was short notice. I just put that out there. I honestly didn't think we'd get any questions, and we had a bunch of questions. One question I'm going to start with, I think this is a good question, and it comes from all of our good friend Achilles, who's the Attack super fan. He said the OHL is a development league. My question is, what team development did we witness this season, and which player took his game to the next level, putting his name to be noticed in the hockey world during the whole season, not a 2-month span? I'll just start by saying I think a number of players this year really developed in front of our eyes. I think John Banks probably is the first one that comes to my mind. Nick Sikora, we saw him enter the league and really develop late in the year. I think we saw some big steps up in the games of, I was going to say Braden Rogers, although we're going to talk later about players departing. Dale DeGray was on earlier, and he mentioned that Braden Rogers is moving on to college next year, but his game developed a little bit this year. I think there was a lot of development, especially with the goaltenders this year, too. So I think if we're looking around the team and any players that you noticed, but where did you guys see development this year? Because I think it's in a lot of different places for a lot of different guys on this team.
Yeah, I'll go first on that one. And I thought as the season went along, I thought there probably should have been a little more emphasis on getting the younger players into the lineup and giving them playing opportunity to try and, like we said, get them those reps, get them that experience. I know a few of them got it over the course of the playoff series, but let's be real, that's not really true playoff experience for them. Other than, finding out how fragile they might be, because I know I'd be crying myself to sleep after those 4 games if I'd been on the ice. But I look at it, and the one player that comes to mind was Matthew Kaprowski. And whether, he had got some regular action throughout the course of the first half of the season, where would he have been in the second half of the year? Because I thought once Carter George was gone and he was playing regularly, he certainly, to me, was the better of the two goaltenders on a more consistent basis. Trenton Bennett had his moments where he flashed, that he's got obviously some good ability, but to me, he's always going to be a project at his size. But Matthew Kaprowski, I don't know how well known it might be, but you just had to watch this team the first half of the year. He was the odd man out. I mean, there was probably times he wasn't sure he was going to play in the OHL again. And I think he is a solid OHL netminder. So I'd be curious to see if, we talk about the weight of the mental aspect of being a goalie, but you take that off his shoulders and just tell him, you've got runway to go with where he could get to. So, I think there's certainly something there. He'd be a player I would point out.
I will take two players off the table if we're doing it like that. Harry Nancy, I think, had the best year-over-year improvement. He points-wise, everything, and he had a real dry spell in the middle of the season. If he didn't have that, we might be talking about an 80-point guy for Owen Sound. And the power play, which was successful all year, ran through him and Pierce Bowie. So I think from year-over-year improvement, Harry Nancy jumps out. But I also want to mention Wesley Royston, because here's a guy who comes over in the deck trade. And it's like, what a way to step into a team where everyone's like, oh, we lost that trade. And he's sitting here thinking like, okay, guys, I'm on the team now. Like, little support would be nice. By the end of the season, he's getting into those fights. He's a burr in the saddle. A lot of the time in the Flint series, he looked like the only one who cared that they were losing. He was like, after the whistle, scrums. And they gave him the assistant captain in the last game there when Lenny Greenberg sat out. So obviously shows you how much the coaches and management think about his place on this team next year. So I'll mention those two guys.
I'm gonna kind of comment on the frame of the question, and instead of just mentioning players, because you guys have already taken a couple of mine, but I can understand where the question's coming from when you look at kind of the way the season unfolded. And Spencer talked about some of the negativity around the team, how they endured these long losing streaks, how they really essentially fell off a cliff in the second half, and how the playoffs went for all the reasons we already talked about. Swept for a fourth straight year, and some fun numbers that are historic in terms of the extent of the beat down the Flint Firebirds put on the Owen Sound Attack. So I can understand the framing of the question in terms of wondering about individual player development when you're watching a team endure that sort of season. But I think what you guys have pointed out is fair and good to mention, that players are still getting reps in. They're still practicing every day. They're still getting in game situations where they are being tested and their skills are getting pushed. Now, would you like to see how do we quantify development? Do you want to see big point leaps? Because like Pierce Bowie from his rookie to year two, like he did increase his point total, right? You look at a player like Cole Zarowski, like another guy who's a scorer in his second year, he did increase his point total and his overall scoring total year one to year two, and all those guys you just talked about. So there's development occurring despite all that. But yeah, I think I can understand where the question's coming from, which is kind of what I wanted to hit on and speak to.
You also mentioned two names for the record.
I did, didn't I? You guys didn't say those ones. So again, those are just point ones. But like you talked about Wesley Royston, who I think is another good example of a player who I think did develop over this season. And everything you hit on, Greg, is so true. Like put in tough circumstances where, everyone tends to evaluate players on goals and assists. And the Owen Sound Attack, when they made that trade on Halloween, Scott Ray was very forward in saying, we're getting a different player. Michael Deck is going to get 100 points in this league probably at some point, and we know what we're giving up. But that's not it's not to say that we expect Wesley Royston to replace his production. It's about having a different player in the lineup. So I think it's good that you mentioned that and pointed that out, because he did morph into that role. It took some time. I think the fact that he was up against the fight limit all season maybe put a cap on the type of player he could have been over the full course of his schedule, but you really saw it down the stretch, late in the regular season and into the playoffs, that sort of gritty, in your face, sandpaper, pesky physical player that the Attack were looking for. And I think, we saw that development. That's beyond goals and assists, right?
I mean, I'll just quickly say Greg took mine. I was a big fan of Harry Nancy's game. I thought he got a lot better, especially with the skating, which is something we all kind of talked about that he needs to get better at. There's still some ways to go for him, and that's kind of the hope for maybe next season when he comes back from the AHL experience he's going to get now, and then obviously when he gets to go to rookie camp again with the Toronto club. That's kind of the hope that he takes the next step with the skating, and maybe that gets him from, what was it, I believe around 50, 60 points, maybe into the 70, 80 point range, and he makes that next step in development because we all see the hands; it's always there. Obviously, the shot. That'll be also mentioned on Attack Wrap that hopefully Harry Nancy can help develop that shot and become more of a shooter because sometimes he does give up pretty good looks in the slot because he is such a good passer and he is such a good facilitator. And then a guy that didn't get that much playing time, played I believe 35 games in his rookie season, was Blake Munnings. Every time Blake was in the lineup, I thought he played pretty well. And for a rookie that obviously was a spot starter, played forward to begin some of the year because of injuries and sickness. It was really good to see Blake get his chances in the lineup. And then obviously, I think he did make some pretty good strides, and I hope to see him. And I think we all know he'll have to play a bigger role next year because of losing two away defensemen and, from what it sounds like, Braden Rogers to the NCAA. So, it's nice to see Blake and kind of feel confident that he will be able to make some strides this summer and be able to come back as a pretty good second year defenseman, just as Elliot Arnett did this year.
Adrian, I think you're the only one that hasn't answered yet, but anything in terms of development that you saw this year that you want to comment on?
I don't want to be the negative person, but I am going to be the negative person at this moment. Like, it's all nice to see these, and Matt touched upon it. Like, what are we deeming progress? Is it point totals? But like, how much did you progress in your 200-foot game? Because like, I don't know, you let in 32 goals in 3 games in the playoffs. So, and I know the playoffs is like the final exam of your test. So where was the progress? Yeah, you had some guys, and I would say Mark hit it in the nail on the head with Matthew Kaprowski, a guy that wasn't playing at all and then became basically their number one goaltender in the playoffs. But I don't know if the progress was as big as what people want it to be, and I think that's where the question comes from. Is yeah, you saw some point totals go up, but that's kind of natural in junior hockey. You look to next year, and who's going to be, as Mark and I used to say on the broadcast a few years ago, who's going to be that Luke Evangelista that had 0 goals and then scored 50. So you're hoping for that progress through the offseason, but all these kids, and they want to get drafted. So to quit on their dream, to quit on their team, and to quit on is like quitting on their dreams, is what I'm trying to say here. It was sad, but they need to look themselves in the mirror at the same time and like, do I want to get drafted? Do I want to play in the NCAA? Because with this new portal, it's not a guarantee. There's so many players that are gonna go down south. It's not a guarantee that you're gonna be playing for BU in 2 years.
Another submitted question we had. Curious who the Attack might be taking with their first round selection this year. Mark, you just covered the OHL Cup. Tremendous job on the play-by-play, by the way. You got a pretty good look at a lot of those kids. Any thoughts on who you think might be available when the Attack make their selection in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, the talent's obviously there when you're picking 8th overall. What stands out to me right off the hop, though, keep in mind the Attack also have Oshawa's second-round pick. So that is 21st overall, which in some years in the OHL, if there are some compensation picks, would be a first-rounder. So to me, there's tons of pressure on them to hit a home run here. Not just with that pick at 8, but also at 21, to get 2 players who can step in, and obviously, hopefully, sky's the limit. I'm not saying we're going back to the Marcus Phillips, Nick Suzuki draft where you got 2 guys pretty early on, but to me, you're looking for 2 impact players. At number 8, everyone's going to immediately look to Cash Quaja, who is the younger brother of Jet Quaja, who is an Attack prospect who, by all accounts, good chance he's going to be in the lineup next year. I'm not sure you're looking to take a couple brother sets on your hockey club. You already have the DeLills. Do you want to take the Quajas? I'm not saying you don't want to, but there's still something that comes with that in terms of having, family within the organization. if they get him though, and that's who they pick, I mean, heck of a player, lots of talent, but I think Dale DeGray has to make the decision. What does he want at that pick? Is it the best player available or the best player available at a position? And we don't see the attack often go to a D-man, but I certainly think there's something to identifying that as a spot where you want to take your first pick.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things, not individual players. You pointed out the one, Mark, that a lot of people have talked about already, given the fact that the attack hold the OHL rights to Cash's older brother, Jet, and Dale DeGray has been public in saying that, at least from Dale's point of view, that Jet will be perhaps in the picture for the Owen Sound Attack next season. But yeah, the D-man thing's an interesting question for me because in my conversations with Dale DeGray, he identified the blue line as a big area that needs to improve. And just in my own kind of time covering the Owen Sound Attack, I feel like they have lacked having some real top defensemen that can really shut down games and can advance the puck. Just have lacked sort of those real number one guys. Yes, I know Greg Cowan's getting ready to say Sam Sedley was on this team a couple years ago, the all-time franchise points leader, great player. And I'm not talking about that in particular, Greg, before just to get ahead of you there. But I would like to see the attack, again, maybe consider that. Do you draft just based on positional need? Not necessarily, but when was the last time the Owen Sound Attack took a defenseman in the first round? Was it Nolan Seed, Mark, which would have been 2016, 17, somewhere around there. So it's been some time since the Owen Sound Attack have gone down that route. Now, ultimately, I think probably your best strategy is just best player available, but I do think the draft is one of the few opportunities you have during the year to improve your club for the long term. And if the blue line is an area of need, then you got to think about that when you have 3 picks inside the top 30. The other thing I'll say is you mentioned Cash Kawaja. The team he plays for is the Toronto Junior Canadiens. There's a lot of good players on that team that are going to be picked inside the top, let's say 45, 50 picks in the OHL priority selection. And I'd be curious to see what the Owen Sound Attack do with players on that team in particular, because there is a family connection with the coaching staff of the Junior Canadiens and some of the attack scouting staff. So what I'm getting at is the attack should have a pretty good handle on what JRC has to offer in this upcoming OHL priority selection.
Yeah, Cash Quadra was the GTHL player of the year. So if he's there at 8 and you got the family connection, it would be the easy thing to do to welcome into the fold. But, it's like Mark said, they just came off a season where they're talking about being too cliquey. So you don't want 2 pairs of brothers and potentially the coach's son in the same locker room. It's already 3 clicks. So it might be something they avoid. As far as Mark did the OHL Cup. I don't follow under 16 hockey too closely during the season, but there is this great mock draft on Mark Perry from Guelph's broadcast tweeted out if you want. They have to go through the whole first round with some descriptions, and I was looking at this Max Lappin guy. Does that name ring a bell, Mark? Big defenseman from Detroit, Honey Baked.
He was their captain. Yeah, he logged a ton of minutes. He looks like a stud.
Yeah, I just think just reading through the things that in the mock draft and the descriptions and going on their elite hockey prospects page, that's about as much scouting as I do for the annual Sun Times pick. He might be my guy this year to grace the front cover of the sports section when I do my draft preview. That's how I make my pick every year.
I thought you went with the coolest name.
Pretty cool name.
It's a pretty cool name, yeah.
It is.
There's also, and now I'm getting the names mixed up, the first name, but Prudhomme, who is 6'7".
Logan.
Lucas was the one I think the attack took in the draft a few years ago. Obviously hasn't suited up for them. Logan is kind of a unicorn in terms of he's massive, I think 6'7", around 200 pounds. But to me, watching him, he'll be a project. I mean, he could become just a dominant power forward, but is he going to step in next year? And if ultimately, and Dale DeGray said it, if we're on some type of, X year plan, your first rounder you would hope could contribute a little bit. And I think he's going to need some time. He's going to need some seasoning. He's pretty green, but interesting player who might still be on the board because, a few months ago I heard people saying he's in the top 5, and the more the conversations have gone on, I think he's sliding a little bit towards middle of that first round, despite the fact, he's just an absolute monster.
Yeah, I only seen highlights on X of him, and he kind of reminds me of what Caleb Lawrence was when he was a 16-year-old in Owen Sound, just a big lanky guy that was a project, and the LA Kings took him with the second last pick in his draft. I don't know who the guy is. Mark watched a lot of U16. I'll probably get out to some more next year since I'll be a AAA coach next year. Yep. Putting that on my resume.
Big news.
Big news. But I do have some stats that the Attack have to do something in this draft. Since 2016 OHL priority selection, only one Owen Sound Attack selection has played in an NHL game, and 2 more have appeared on game sheets. That's 130 picks, excluding the past 2 drafts, as they cannot be drafted. I personally expect 2 more to play in the NHL, Carter George and Dean Letourneau. Those players, Isaac Howard, who never played a game in Owen Sound, Nick Chenard was an emergency backup, and Matt Guzda backed up a game. Since 2005, only 4 of the Attack's first-round picks have been drafted and played NHL games, the last one being Victor Mete, who never played a game for the Attack. Before that, it was and Nick Suzuki was a first rounder, but he wasn't the first pick. Marcus Phillips was the first pick, so it goes all the way back to that. And I believe Josh Bailey, Victor Mete, and I forget who the Joey Hishin, and I forget who the fourth was. But they need to hit.
Round of applause for the research. Coming prepared. Doesn't want to be negative. Profit thesis.
And you know what, though? It's one of those weird things, though, Adrian, that if you get look at like an Ethan Miedema, who becomes a 300-plus game player, who is an impactful OA for his hockey club, right? I don't think you ever pick your first rounder with thoughts he's going to make it to his OA year, though. You're right. You're thinking this guy's here for 3-4 years on to pro. And every case is different, but I think there's something telling there. You want to hit home runs.
I kind of want to just touch on what Matt said, which is I think the U16 draft obviously is very important for every club. As Mark mentioned just there, you're always trying to hit the Grand Slam. You're trying to get the best player and trying to find the guy that's going to play in the NHL in 3 years and be drafted in the top 10 or 15, like Ethan Belchez. Ryan Rubrex dropped down boards, but he was a projected top 10 pick in this year's draft before having some injuries and not having the best season with Niagara. But I also think that it's you're drafting 15-year-olds. So do you know how much that kid's going to grow in 2 years? No, you have no idea. But you have to make the best selection you can see. So is it going to be a connection like Cash Kawaja or the Predlome? Is that the way you go? Or is it another kid you have a lot of information on?
Yeah.
It was like that's just kind of the thing. And then obviously, I'm assuming we're going to talk about the import draft too, but the import draft's coming up too. So that also is going to play a big factor because Owen Sound had 0 imports, and that was a big talking point on Attack Wrap.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're just about to be kicked off of Zoom because I have refused to pay for it. So to all of you, I want to say a big thank you for everything this year on the Media Room Roundtable. Thank you to you, Adrian, as well, for Moose on the Loose. There'll be a bigger thank you at the end of the episode. But guys, I appreciate you all getting together on a weeknight, taking time out. Mark taking time in the car and breaking away from a party was that, guys. It's very much appreciated. A lot of people love this segment. And thank you and have an amazing summer, guys.
Thank you, JC.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
JC.
Have a good summer.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for this season. The 2025-2026 season has officially come to an end. 30 episodes in this season for the Bear Tracker Weekly Podcast. To those of you that were here for every single one of them, I thank you so much. If you're just tuning in now because you're a fan that wants to hear a little bit more about the drama around the team, hey, thanks for coming by. We are taking the summer off, as we did last year, but this year we will have an episode coming around early to mid-June from the OHL draft, which now returns to an in-person draft format. So I guess that means the draft party is kind of sort of out. I don't know. I haven't talked to Greg Hodnott about that, but obviously it's going to be a little bit different this year for fans in Owen Sound. But hopefully fans, and I'm sure fans, I can already think of who, of Owen Sound Attack fans will be making the trip to Kingston. It is open to the public this year, the OHL draft, so I'll be there, hopefully getting some interviews with Attack management and also with the new Attack players as well, to look forward to the upcoming season. So that'll be coming in mid-June. I'll try this summer too, when big news happens around the team, to have something. Probably a short, not a full formal episode, but a short something with whatever that big news is. If it's new people or new players, whoever happens to pop up this year, I'll try to have that. So just as long as you're subscribed to us wherever you listen to this podcast or wherever you watch this, assuming it's on YouTube, as long as you're subscribed, you'll get notifications when those new episodes pop up over the summer. So do make sure that you like and subscribe to this podcast and the video version on YouTube. I guess because this is the end of season, some big end of season thank yous. First of all, to all the players for the Owen Sound Attack, who took their time this year to give me a few moments for an interview. Again, guys, I really appreciate it. I know how hard you guys work, and I know it's not easy at your ages to have to leave home and come away because you're following and chasing a dream. And when things don't go well, and I know they didn't go well a lot this year, the last thing you want is a guy like me putting a microphone in your face. But you were gracious in your time, and I appreciate that. So thank you. For those of you that aren't going to be here next year, I have no idea who, other than, I guess, obviously the OAs. And as Dale mentioned earlier, Braden Rogers is going to school next year. So for the guys that aren't going to be here next year, it was a pleasure. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, wherever your hockey career or your life takes you. The best of luck to you. To my fellow media guys, again, thank you guys so much for everything this year. And that extends beyond our local media. I mean, for everybody in the OHL. I didn't have as many other media interviews this year as I did in season 1, but it's always an amazing experience to see our fellow OHL brothers and sisters at the arenas and to talk to them and interact with them. And it really is a great group of people. So thank you again for all of your time this year, for your guidance and your mentorship and everything. Thank you to all the folks in the media this year. Thanks to all the folks behind the scenes in hockey operations for the Owen Sound Attack for everything that you do and all the work that probably doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. I appreciate that. Greg Hodnott, Amelia, Evan for setting up interviews and making sure all of that worked, all my requests worked this year. Thank you so much. Thank you to the coaches this year, Scott, Regan, Brandon. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you've done for the team on and off the ice. Thank you to our producer at Rogers TV and all of the crew of volunteers that have worked so hard this year to bring you a season of Attack Hockey, camera folks, graphics folks, sound folks, Pat, and everybody. Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to work with you guys. You do an amazing job. Who else do I have to thank? If I forget anybody, I'm sorry. I apologize. Now it's turning into an Oscars speech. It's going that long. I'm getting played off now. Thank you to Adrian Musso again for everything this year, Adrian, for asking to be a part of the podcast. It was so great to have you and still have you as part of this team because you're always part of the team. You're always in Attack, even if you're not around anymore. So that was great. I guess that's it. Thanks to everybody again. Mark, Greg, Matt, Spencer, everybody. It was an awesome season. Thank you for listening so much and for putting up with me every week this year. Yeah, that'll do it for episode 30, season 2 of the Bear Tracker Weekly Podcast. Have a great summer. You'll hear from me again from the OHL draft. You'll hear from me again probably around the beginning of preseason. We'll plan some more fun stuff for season 3. It's been an honor. And as all Attack fans, I'm sure, myself included, looking forward to bigger and better things next season. Cheers.
Remember to like, follow, and subscribe at Bear Tracker Pod on social media and wherever you get your podcasts.